Hello everyone, welcome to this intermediate lesson. Today we're going to have a look at Ma Pauvre Bourse. This is a piece by Philip van Wilde. It exists in 3 different versions. This is the simplest version, but even though it's the simplest, it's still quite tricky, so we're going to have a look at that today for our intermediate lesson. So, first thing we're going to have a look at is bar 5. The end of bar 5 into bar 6, we have some interesting parts sitting in the sort of tenor and bass register. So here we've got a nice second clash between the G and the F. And it's really important to hear that, it's a really nice moment. It's quite easy to mix those up. So we've got a G in the tenor and an F in the bass, and this lovely second clash. So just make sure that you can hear both of those notes. I find it quite useful to sort of make sure that all of my fingers in my left hand are lifted up off the fretboard, so that there's plenty of airspace there so that I'm not accidentally muting the G. Another thing that you can do with your right hand is make sure that you're pushing into both pairs of strings, both courses. Make sure you're getting enough depth on the string when you're pushing in, and this way you'll get the best resonance you can, because it'd be really nice to hear that tension, that resonance. And then into bar 6, here we go, we've got a nice chord going on here, sort of C major first inversion chord. So what we want to again do here is make sure that we've got a nice bit of spacing. I'm using my third finger here for the E. Between the E and the G, we want to be able to hear both of those notes, so I'm really trying to bend my left hand fingers round, curl them round, to make sure there's enough space there so I can hear both notes. And just to make that even more tricky, we've got to add the top C here with the little finger. Okay, and that could be a little tricky to get into, so my fingering for the beat before, so the end of bar 5, when we're playing this lovely second clash, is 1 and 3, which might seem a little bit convoluted, but it's to leave your fourth finger free so that it can arrive on the C on the top string in the next bar. So to be able to play that smoothly, I would suggest using fingers 1 and 3 for the final beat of bar 5. And then when you arrive at bar 6, all you have to do is move your third finger down 1 fret and put your fourth finger down. It should allow you to arrive there smoothly without it being a big jump. Okay? Now the other thing that I do when I arrive in bar 6 is I put a barre down. So if this couldn't get more complicated, we're going to introduce a barre. So here I do a sort of half barre lower down on the strings, so probably from the 5th, 4th and 3rd courses I put a barre down there, and that's so that I can hold on to as many notes as possible. So here I'm holding on to the top C, I'm holding on to the G, and then I'm just changing the bass line, and by just lifting my third finger on and off, it should mean that I can get everything to sustain. So, just to run through that one more time, because it's a bit complicated. At the end of bar 5, we've got this lovely second clash, and we're going to use fingers 1 and 3. And then we're sliding down at the start of bar 6, sliding our third finger down 1 fret, as I just did there, putting a barre down with our first finger, and making sure our fourth finger's down on the top C, and that's being allowed to ring. Okay, good luck. That's a really tricky moment, but it's worth it when you get it right. So, moving on to our next thing, which is bar 13. We're going to have a quick look here. So here, it's really important to sustain the top line. It's very easy to get a bit distracted by the bass line and the tenor line ascending, but it's really nice if we can just hold on to this A at the start of the bar, so that it's ringing whilst we play that first tenor and bass 6th. And then obviously the top string will ring by itself as long as you don't accidentally stop it. But that first A and C, if you can get those to ring at the start of the bar, this is bar 13 at the start of the bar, and then shift. Okay. Now the last beat of bar 13, it's really nice to be able to pronounce that third there. Okay, so push into those strings as much as possible, and if you like, move your right hand down a tiny bit, just to get slightly more definition in the bass. Okay, now there are smoother ways to play it than I just did, but if you can really hear that bass line coming out and the top line separately, you'll have a really lovely polyphony. So that extends into bar 14, so that we still have these low thirds in the tenor and bass, and it's really nice to preserve those whilst we go through. So if you think of the bass and tenor line starting halfway through bar 13, or the second beat of bar 13, yeah, we want to try and really look after these last three in bar 14 as well. That's beats 1, 2 and 3 in 14. So when you arrive on bar 14, okay, now I do a little barre on the second beat. It might be possible to do a barre where you hold on to the bass note, yeah, and keep that third ringing. But the important thing is to bring those thirds out. So they're very sweet on the lute. Great. The next thing is actually the following bar. So we're going to have a look at bar 14 into 15. Here we have a suspended F on the last beat of bar 14. Now we want to suspend that into the next bar. Actually, all we have to do is not move any fingers, really. We just keep that first finger down. And then we'll take off our third finger so that the open C can ring. And then shift on the second beat. Okay, because the open C will slightly cover us for lifting the C in the middle of the instrument in the tenor part of the instrument. So is what I would suggest for that. Hold on to that F over the bar line, because I think that's the most noticeable note if you suddenly decide to release it. Okay, so I only start moving really on the second beat of bar 15. Okay, moving on to bar 16. We've got quite a few technical things crammed into these few bars. So bar 16, we're going to have a look at the third beat. So we've gone, okay, we've jumped up the neck, hopefully nice and smoothly. Now here I need to do a tiny barre so that we can really sustain this bass line. It's the bass line, but it's in the tenor sort of register. Okay, so from this position, our first finger should be covering the two strings. It should be the third and the fourth course that you're holding down in the barre on the first finger, so that you're sustaining this tenor part. Okay? And that just allows the bass part to move independently. Okay? So make sure that you can hear that sustained. And obviously sustain the top part as well, but we want to hear those inner parts separately to the bass, and that means sustaining the bass and sustaining the treble. Great, okay. Next little thing is bar 21. So when we get to bar 21, we have this really nice polyphony that is sort of sets of chords overlapping. There's lots of fourths involved. Okay. So from the second half of the bar, when we're playing this chord, we want to really hold on to that, hold on to the D. So this is the third and fourth beats of bar 21. And I'm just holding on to this, this tenor line. That's what it's doing into bar 22. Just works very nicely as a suspension, so worth looking after that one. Okay, now the last thing that we're going to have a focus on is bar 32. So in bar 32, yeah, we end up having some really big chords. We're suddenly playing in quite spread harmony. So a lot of the harmony in this piece is quite close. It's all quite close together. So when we suddenly arrive in bar 32, 33, and we have this quite grand ascension, the spectrum of the chord changes and it's much wider. And the main thing to look after here is the fifth in the bass. Okay, if you can hear that fifth, it's going to support the rest of the chord. And obviously we want to play it all really smoothly, or as smoothly as you can. I would really practice this secco, so do it one chord at a time and try and move as smoothly as you can between them. Okay, but the important thing with this top chord, this A minor chord, is this fifth in the bass. And I'd play that in the same way that we were playing the thirds in 13-14, where we're going. I'd really look after that fifth, make sure that my thumb and my finger are pushing deeply into those strings. Just try and get as much resonance from them as possible. Make sure you're playing both courses on each string. Because if you've got that fifth, it will just support the rest of the chord, even if you play it quite softly. Okay? Great, so going into that, obviously, practice it like this. So do one chord at a time, take your time with them. Okay, and move as quickly as you can between the chords, and that will allow you to sustain the notes as long as possible and make it sound smooth, even though it might feel a little bit jumpy in your left hand. Great, so yeah, do that, look after the fifth, and I hope you've enjoyed this one. It's a really good piece.